Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending today's webinar, Tips for Collecting Faster, brought to you by Cornerstone Billing Solutions and Rapid Response Monitoring. My name is Jason Steja. I will be your moderator for today's session. A few housekeeping notes on the front end so you can make the most of your webinar experience with us today. We should be in and out in definitely under an hour. I'm thinking 50 to 55 minutes with the Q&A, somewhere in that time frame. We are recording today's session, so it'll be available on demand within the next 24 hours. If you're attending, we'll send you an email with the link to access the on-demand version so you can reinforce what you learn. If you missed this today, if you registered but weren't able to attend, no problem. We'll send you a link to the on-demand version as well so you can see what you missed. And if you want to share it with any peers that you think would get value out of that, the more the merrier. Feel free to do that. There is no dial-in option for today's attendees. We always get that question. You're going to be hearing the audio through your PC speakers. If you're joining us from a mobile device, you'll be able to hear it through your smartphone or through your tablet. If the audio is not loud enough for you, it should be. It defaults to 75%. But just in case it's not, or if you're in a cubicle-based environment, headphones are recommended. As I mentioned, we're having a Q&A at the end of today's webinar. You'll see the Q&A box along with a number of other boxes up there. If you have any questions, type in your question, click submit. We'll get to as many of those as we can at the end of today's presentation. Regarding the other boxes, we always get the question of, hey, what if I want to view the slide deck in full screen mode or in bigger mode? You can bend and stretch every window up there. You can make them wider, make them taller. You can also min-max all the windows. So if you want to view the slide deck in full screen mode, just maximize it, and voila, there you go. If you want to learn more about today's speakers, you'll see the speaker info box. You can click more next to their picture and get their complete bio. And then finally, we have a number of different what we call engagement widgets at the bottom that enable you to do a number of different things. You can share this through Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, various other social channels. So if you have peers in your network that you think would get value out of today's webinar, feel free to share it with them. You can also email out of this platform through a number of different email platforms as well. So if you want to email this to some folks that you'd like to have join in the 11th hour, send this to them. It's not too late. Still haven't gotten to the meat of the presentation. You can email out of this as well. And then finally, you'll see, or before finally as well, you'll see a resource icon. It's the one that looks like a paperclip. If you click on that, Cornerstone and Rapid Response are hosting today's PowerPoint deck within that resource icon or that resource widget. So click on that, the one that looks like a paperclip. You can then download today's PowerPoint deck and review it for safekeeping. Then finally, if you have any questions, any technical issues, most of the time, most of your questions can be answered in that FAQ icon, the one that says FAQ, or if you feel like you need a support agent to help you troubleshoot any technical difficulties you're having, hopefully you don't, but in case you do, there's a support widget as well. Click on that. You can chat with the support rep, and we'll take care of you in real time. So now on to today's presenters. We've got two really good ones. They're going to do a great job. We've got Scott McDougall. Scott is the founder, the president, jack of all trades at Cornerstone Billing Solutions. I've done a number of these with Scott. He's a thought leader in the space. He's going to do a fantastic job. You're going to get a lot of value out of what he brings to today's session. We also have Christopher Denniston joining us today. Christopher is the Director of Marketing and Contract Development at Rapid Response Monitoring. He's going to give you a sense of Rapid Response, what they do, their value to the marketplace, all that good stuff. So without further ado, I'm now going to hand the floor over to Christopher. Christopher, take it away.
Thanks very much, Jason, for that great intro, and thank you, Scott, for the opportunity to join me today. I feel this topic is critical to the success of so many dealers in the security industry. As the market continues to change with the addition of new technologies, and many of which require involving another service provider, it is even more important that timely payment is obtained in order to ensure continued service. So a little bit about Rapid Response. In 1992, when our president founded Rapid Response, he had a vision for a new kind of security monitoring services company. It was one of commitment shared by security professionals working together to benefit their customers beyond what they would expect in products and services, and to fast forward the capabilities of an entire industry. Now, bringing us to today, we are now serving international and national clients, over 1.5 million subscribers, and we are employing over 600 of the industry's most trained professionals. We're licensed to monitor in all states requiring a license for monitoring, and we're certified by Underwriters Laboratory and Factory Mutual. We have 2 fully redundant facilities, and that totals more than 90,000 square feet of space exclusively dedicated to monitoring. This is our business. This is what we believe in most. And our staff are the most highly trained and professional in the industry. We're the only monitoring center to require college education requirements or equivalent military experience for hiring. That really makes a difference in our dealers' businesses. And most importantly, we're very tech forward. That's the reason for me being involved with Cornerstone and for our reason to support this webinar. We're leading the industry in strategic verticals, mobile connectivity, and partnerships. As far as the services Rapid Response provides, we provide intrusion monitoring, fire monitoring, remote video monitoring, medical system monitoring, including in the field wherever you go, GPS monitoring, emergency phone and elevator monitoring, personal safety and lone worker protection, which is increasing in the number of systems used today based on just the world and how it's changing. IoT is a whole new world for everybody. If you don't have a smart device in your home, you really aren't with the times, and so many are. And lastly, UL 2050, which is high-level secured classified areas. So that in a nutshell are the services we provide, but there's so much more that we can really dive into if you want to learn more about our services. I'm really happy to have Cornerstone as a partner. It is my pleasure at this time to turn the floor over to Scott McDougall and have him really give us the direction and tips for how we can do better collecting in the future.
Chris, I very much appreciate it. In terms of webinar topics, there probably are sexier topics than getting paid on time, getting paid faster, but there probably aren't too many topics that are more important. Basically, your customers should know that paying late can create severe stress on your business, and they still pay late. So part of our job today is to give you really practical blocking and tackling tips to getting paid faster. That said, big picture, there's really 2 halves to this presentation, and the first half has to do with avoiding receivables in the first place. So not having to collect at all, given technology, given auto pay and other things we'll go over, if you can avoid ending up with receivables, you're going to obviously be able to avoid the collections process. Second part of this webinar will cover really a quality process. When you do end up with receivables, executing a quality process is really critical, and we'll talk about best practices related to that. So let's start with the invoice itself. A key to avoiding receivables is to have absolutely crystal clear invoices, and we'll dig into this in a minute, but every invoice should have who it's from, when is it due, where do I call with questions, precisely what is it for. Making it easy to pay is part of this, and what do I reference when I do pay. So let's start with, this is a Cornerstone invoice for one of our customers, and this is the top section of that invoice. We'll review the top, the middle, and the bottom sections of what we consider to be a best practices type invoice. So clearly this is from this company. So logo included top left on the invoice. In the box there you see issue date, due date, customer number, invoice number, so all of the pieces of information that you need, the critical stuff. And then top right we have the opportunity for our dealers to include two different phone numbers, a phone number for service inquiries and for billing. In the setup of the billing process, we, many years ago, decided it was a good idea to separate recurring invoices from non-recurring invoices. For most of our companies, we recommend 20-25 days for recurring, for payment of the recurring invoices. And for non-recurring invoices, we recommend 5 to 10 days. Clearly, if you've done the work, you need to get paid quicker for recurring invoices, since in this industry, our companies generally bill in advance. So if you're billing on let's say the 12th of the month for the following month, you need to give them some time to pay. And truly, the service period doesn't start for, in that case, about 18 more days. So giving them 20 to 25 days to pay a recurring invoice makes sense. Middle section of one of our invoices, you can see here the first thing we like to do is include any previously issued invoices. So we like to tell the customer the total amount that they owe to the dealer. And so it somewhat serves as a hybrid. It's both an invoice and a statement by including prior unpaid invoices that are outstanding. The next section is obviously the current period details. So in this case, you can see very clearly monitoring service, the date range, Sell Interactive with Alarm.com, the date range, the invoice numbers, the issue date, and obviously the total amount due, including tax. Always a good idea to use white space to promote something. So in this case, the dealer wants to recommend they test their alarm monthly, and there's a blurb at the bottom related to late fees. So pay on time or you'll be subject to a late fee. So here is a service, I guess this is actually an installation invoice. So what I like about this is how detailed it is. You can see there are a number of line items here. It looks like about $1,500 worth of installed parts. And not only are the parts described, you see the price and quantity. So at the top, GE NX8 kit, 1 times $163.80. So you've got the price and quantity, extremely clear as to what was installed and what, therefore, you owe the dealer for. Moving on to the bottom section of the invoice, when we issue recurring invoices, we always include a perforated tear-off remittance coupon to make it easy to pay. So tearing it off, sending it in with an envelope that's included with the invoice makes it easy to pay. What I want you to notice about this invoice is how many different options there are for payment. So let's take a look. This obviously is a tear-off stub, so the typical call to action is tearing it off, cutting a check, mailing the check in with the coupon. But there are some other options. Here you've got basically a credit card payment. Enter your credit card number, sign off on it, and make a one-time payment. We also like to include the ability to set up ongoing recurring auto pay. So you can see in that little box it says charge from now on, so the customer can check, yes, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to cut any checks or have to fill out a payment stub. I want this company to go ahead and charge my recurring every single period. Very valuable, and obviously sets them up for auto pay ongoing. We include our payment portal on these tear-off stubs, so you can see our payment portal is alarmpayments.com. If they choose not to mail in a check, they can just go online, log into Alarm Payments, and pay there. So several different ways to make payment. I want to talk for just a minute on due upon receipt. Again, in our software, we allow our dealers to include, check a box that will use the words due upon receipt for usually it's service installation invoices. Is it a good idea? I think it is because it pretty much means immediate. The only issue with due upon receipt is it's not an exact date. But if you're rendering service and you hand somebody an invoice, or you go online and complete a service call and generate an invoice, basically it should be due at that point. An alternative to this would be this box, which shows a specific due date. In this case, if the service was just rendered, issue date is exactly the same as the due date. Let's talk about auto pay and immediate payment. So again, in the interest of avoiding receivables, we recommend that our dealers really push, and we provide them ways to push for those two things. So let's get into the details. In setting up a recurring account, you can see here, this is a drop down on our recurring screen, and you can see of the several payment methods available, basically all but the first one and the last one are auto pay methods. So it's credit cards, it's checking, savings, debits, auto pay. Otherwise, if it's not auto pay, it's going to be paper bill or email bill. Very easy. We'll have a few slides on statistics that I think will be helpful to those attending today. The first one has to do with the shift really in the last 5 to 10 years to non-paper methods of payment. So on the left side in this bar chart is 2013. So the first 6 months of 2013, payments through the Cornerstone system, and we do a lot of payment processing. And the right bar chart is 2018, first 6 months of 2018. So what I want you to notice is the 47% 5 years ago, that represents check payments by check. Dramatic change in 5 years' time, where it was almost half of all payments 5 years ago. It's now just over a quarter. It's 27%. In the blue, you can see 5 years ago, ACH bank debit basically was 20%. Now it's 23%, so a slight increase. The big change is credit card. So the proliferation of use of credit cards and paying bills. I think people want miles on their Mileage Plus card. Lots of reasons. Premium credit cards, you build up points and you can use that. That's really been the big. That's really taken up the slack. A lot less paper, a lot more credit card. On any recurring invoices that we send out, we've already looked at the ability to pay with a one-time payment credit card or to our alarmpayments.com website. But many of our dealers use the back side, the flip side of the tear-off stub to solicit auto pay. In this case, it's auto pay ACH. So yet another way on the invoice to get somebody to sign up for auto pay. Emailing, honestly, is a bit of a crapshoot because when you email, there's just no way to know whether that email was actually received. There are spam filters that can take out emails, but having said that, when emails go out of our system, we automatically include this little ad, and in the middle of that ad is a link, a hyperlink to our alarmpayments.com website. So again, a very quick way to just click on the link and go ahead and get the bill paid. Let's talk about auto pay and some carrots that our customers use as well as some sticks. Some of our dealers offer just a lower rate. It's a lot better to put anything on autopilot if you can, so they may discount their monthly rate a bit for auto pay. They can lock in the current price, so if the contract rate is $35 for a month for the monitoring, they can lock that in for perhaps the term of the contract if somebody uses an auto pay method. Some of our customers like to bill annually just because for them it's less hassle, and they get paid obviously up front. So discounting for annual payment, it might be 1 month of discount for paying 12 months in advance. Sticks, late fees. Late fees can work. We would all be annoyed by having a late fee assessed on any bill that we get, so you got to be careful with late fees. I think during Q&A I want to talk a little bit more about late fees. Paper invoicing fee. Increasingly, this is used to encourage people to switch to auto pay. It obviously costs more to generate and mail a paper bill. We've gone through several Going Green initiatives, and here's an example of a blurb that we print on invoices if one of our dealers wants to do that. Very effective, and people get it. We don't need to kill these trees. You sign up for auto pay, we won't send you any more paper bills, and that's the way the world is going. Let's talk a few minutes about service invoicing. So this is time, material, service calls to avoid, again, generating receivables in the first place. So pre-authorization, and that is a tremendous and effective tool to get the customer to agree, hey, this is a billable service call. We have a video on that in just a minute. Using an auto pay method that's already on file for a service call, since increasingly people are signed up for auto pay, just simply getting the customer to say, let's go ahead and run your existing card. Very effective. Using a field card swipe option like Square, increasingly used to get immediate payment. Payment portal like the Alarm Payments website that we have to get payment quickly. And finally, you can walk out the door with a check, kind of the traditional way of getting paid. But bottom line here is don't finish a service call. Don't allow your techs to walk out the door without having some kind of payment. I can't remember the last time I had somebody come to my home and fix something and walk out the door without getting paid. It shouldn't happen. So here's a video on pre-authorization. And what you're seeing here is some default language that we set up to print on a service ticket that talks about getting paid at the end of service, the hourly rate, and if you do have an auto pay method on file, the ability to go ahead and use that auto pay method. And then you'll see below that there's some more language about warranties, which is also important, and that stuff prints on a service ticket in our system. So here is, again, somebody's logged in, they're at the customer home or business, they take the signature right then and there, and this customer clearly knows they're going to need to pay for that service call when the call is finished. So let's run a copy of the ticket. So here's a copy of the ticket. You can see that language, the default language that was set up is shown right there at the top, and the signature is captured there. It's a beautiful way to ensure that you're going to get paid right then and there at the end of that service call. It's a beautiful thing. For larger jobs, and it's often the problem in this industry, there are a few keys, common sense keys to avoiding generating receivables. First, it starts with a quote. You really need to be specific in your quote, very precise as to when payment is to be rendered for that installation. If it's loose, plan on not getting paid. Objective benchmarks. So you can't have any judgment involved. It's got to be completely objective, usually based on completion of something very clear and specific. And you, as a security company, need to control that benchmark. You can't leave it to the customer to say, okay, we're going to have a walkthrough inspection. Even though that often does happen, it needs to be under your control. So when you bill, you basically should be getting paid at that time. And I did a screenshot here on the bottom right on this slide of an actual set of payment terms that one of our customers in the Northeast uses. Not real sophisticated here, but very effective. And what I like about this 40% upon acceptance, 40% upon arrival, and then 20% upon completion is you'll notice 80% of what's due is going to be paid by the customer before work even starts. Now, a very high percentage. I like it. We'll talk a little bit about what we do at the end of this, but one of the main reasons that people find ways not to pay is service problems, issues with the system, whatever, service problems. So if your company provides great service, that eliminates that excuse to not pay, and vice versa, obviously. So we're through the first part. When you do end up with receivables, couple of very common sense keys. You need to follow a consistent process based on best practices, and that's what we're going to cover in the next few minutes. So for those parents out there, successful collections is like good parenting. Set your expectations, then follow through. I wanted to spend a minute on typical percentages. So if you're billing $100, typically what percentage of that would end up in the past due bucket, past its terms? And of that amount, what percentage is typically collected before, let's say, you get to the point of cutting off a customer? The stats that I'm going to show in just a second are from our own system. We do a lot of collections, first-party collections work, and we took a cross-section of 26 of our dealers to come up with our percentages. So let me show those first. So in the case of those that we are handling first-party collections for, about 14% drop into the past due category. And of that amount, about 85 to 90% is typically collectible before the 90 to 120-day cutoff period. However, that's not typical. We are in this business. Our job is to get paid quickly and to set up the various methods that we're talking about today to really either avoid receivables or execute a quality process to get those monies in. For companies that come to us, their percentages are more in the range of 30 to 40% drops into the past due bucket. So 30 to 40%, really that's too high. If you implement some of the methods that we talk about today, I think the best you can do is what I show here, 14%. That's only like $1 out of 7. Very, very low percentage ends up past due, so a lot less work to do. In collecting on your past dues, good information is absolutely critical. Primary contact information and phone numbers. In our system, in the old days, we had a couple of contact fields because of the need to have a lot more information, especially on commercial accounts. So commercial accounts, you often have multiple contacts, and we decided to add a couple of more contact fields for the accounts payable person, including their phone number and hopefully their email, and the service, the person who handles service issues, manages service for that company. So we now have 4 fields and obviously 4 phone numbers. On the email side, we have 3 email slots, and we have some specifics here. You can see secondary email address, and then the last one is service email address. So very valuable when you're trying to collect your money. So I want to go through kind of the 5 key pillars of being successful in collections, and we'll get into more detail on each of these. First, start early, within 5 to 10 days after the due date. That should be common sense. The longer you leave something, the less likely it is to get paid. So start right away. Stage your follow-up as a very precise process. We'll get into that in a minute. Use all contact methods, and I can't stress this one enough. It's not just enough to make calls. It's not just enough to send, let's say, statements or letters. You need these days to use all methods, texting, emailing, etc. Make it easy to pay. You've seen that in some prior slides, and make it easy to sign up for auto pay. And finally, just style-wise, be friendly but extremely direct when you do execute your collections process. So this is a calendar, and this is pretty close to what our company uses when we are engaged by some of our dealers to handle their slow pay follow-up. So this is the month of April, and we've got a due date, let's say April 1st. What happens next? We, these days, execute a friendly reminder text. So we text, if it's a textable phone number, and we include in that text a link to our payment portal. We include a callback number. We'll get into that in a minute. We have automated calling. We'll get into that further, but basically batches of calls made to past due accounts. We email a copy of the statement to the customer. We then send a collection letter on the 22nd, so about 3 weeks in. and finally a live collection call. Now, the comment I want to make on this calendar is that the labor intensive and the expensive part of this effort comes at the end. So the letters and the calls are the most expensive part of this. With the tools available today, you can use texting and emailing to cover and hopefully get paid from a number of your customers so that you don't have to send letters and make live collection calls. And even if your calendar doesn't look like this, you need to have a calendar, and that calendar every month should include at least 3 or 4 touches of your customer. Let's take a minute to talk about texting versus emailing. As I said, emails often are filtered out. 20% of emails are never opened these days. On the other hand, texting, 95% of texts are read within 3 minutes. Amazing. When we got started with texting as part of our collections work last year, 2017, here are 2 examples, specific examples of batches that we ran. So the first one, 330 plus texts of 10-day reminders. So this is the very first step in the process I just showed you. 25% of those that were texted paid online within 1 day. And more amazing, when we got started, we had some seriously past due accounts. 25 texts were sent to accounts nearing the 90-day cutoff period. So these are folks that have been emailed and called, and letters were sent over a 90-day period. And when we implemented texting and we sent this batch of 25 texts out, 12, almost half, paid within 1 day. So to me, that's amazing, because these folks are about ready to go to the collection agency and would have been cut off. So the texting process saved almost half of this group, and that's a lot of value to our companies. So the end result, texts do work, and they reduce a lot of labor-intensive follow-up. Just FYI, here are some sample text messages for you. If you don't currently do texting, you can implement texting. And this is the first text, and the second text, which would be about 40, 45 days out, and the third text. So in terms of what you say, you need to include the account number, call to action. This is just an example for anybody who wants to implement texting. And in terms of calling and the automated calling, most companies probably do not do that. I wanted to talk about that for just a minute. The reason we do it is we do a lot of collections work, and we find that especially at the beginning, when you have a lot of folks in the past due bucket, it's very efficient. You don't have to pick up the phone and individually call. You can call dozens or hundreds of past due accounts with one automated call batch. So it's very efficient. You'll notice in the call we're about to play that it's very friendly, but it's direct, and there's a call to action. So let's have a listen. In terms of live calling, here's some sample language. Again, for your information, we don't really use a script, but we outline what it is we want to say, and this may give you some ideas when you do your own collection calling. So here's a sample script, sample approach. It's always conversational, but basically very direct, calling on behalf of ABC Alarms regarding this invoice due 7/19. And then we have options, yes and no. So if the customer says, yes, I did send it, we recommend that you get the check number. So you can go into your software, create a follow-up date for that past due account, and check in a week or so to make sure that they did, in fact, send it in. If they say no, didn't send it, obviously the first thing you want to do is say, hey, we can take care of that right now over the phone. And then you can ask for their credit card or checking information, or send them to a payment portal if you've got one. So good, typical live call sample here. There are customers who still prefer getting paper, so always mail statements every month. If auto pays fail, we always send out paper invoices just to let them know, hey, auto pay didn't clear, here's the paper invoice, hopefully they do pay from that. And finally, collection letters can work after you've tried some of the lower cost processes. So more stats, typical payment pattern for recurring batches. So each of these orange bars is a 30-day period. So 30, 60, 90, 120. You can see here that almost two-thirds of customers in our system pay within the first 30 days. And almost 90% paid within 60 days. So it's just for your information, most should be paid. You're ending up with maybe 10% that you need to follow up on beyond 60 days. Just point of reference. Same for non-recurring invoices. As you'd expect, a lower percentage, a little over half pay by 30 days, and a little over three-quarters pay within 60 days. So how do I track all this stuff? We've talked about a lot of different ways to try to reach the past due account. Bottom line, if you can use your software to do it and do it in real time, we recommend that you do that. In our system, we've got a very sophisticated, what we call a Billing Plus module, which is really designed to manage what did I do last and what do I do next. So basically, next steps is key to any process. So if you can manage in your software, we recommend that you do that as opposed to printing out an aging and managing it on paper when honestly that's a bit clunky. Hopefully you can use some user-defined fields to make it easier. So just a few minutes on Cornerstone, and then we'll move to the Q&A. Cornerstone, we've been around for almost 20 years. We have a cloud-based platform for our security dealers. We only service this industry. We have specialized security industry software, so it's got bells and whistles related just to managing security accounts. We really specialize and get paid for billing and payment services. We decided way back when that we wanted to do actual work for our companies. It's very tough to know what to charge for software by itself. We feel like we should be doing real work. We do collections, first party, starting 5-10 days past due. Just talked about most of that. And we have several integrations, including with central stations like Rapid Response, Merchant Services, e-signature, being able to sign online, things like contracts, collection agency, and QuickBooks. The big thing that sets us apart from our competitors is we do the work, and I want to talk about what that means. So let's say we have a dealer with 1,000 accounts, 500 invoices a month, which is a mix of paper and auto pay methods. What do we do? What do we do for them as their behind-the-scenes billing agent? The first thing we do is we run their recurring invoices. When people think about billing services, they usually think only about this step. And honestly, this is probably the easiest thing that we do among all the things that we do because it's discrete. It happens typically one day a month. And we've got an automated process to run those bills. But there are several more steps, and we handle all of these. So once we've run the bills for the month of April, we have auto pays. So we've got the 1st and the 15th, in the case of the way we manage those, auto pay batches, EFT, and credit card to run. We then have ad hoc batches, so people go online to our payment portal and pay there. We're clearing those batches at least 3 times a week. So these are credit card batches. So we're clearing 20-plus credit card batches. 12-plus credit card batches during the month. Same for ACH, EFT batches. We're clearing those at least 4 times a month. And then obviously there's lots of paper bills. So every day, every business day, there will be checks coming in. So here you've got 20-plus check batches that need to be processed, deposit tickets, etc. So our job, really, and mainly what we get paid for, is taking a whole lot of admin work off of our companies. So you see here, this is 40 to 50 payment batches and the accounting related to those batches. Our job is to handle that so our dealer doesn't have to. What does our dealer do? We basically are making progress payments back to our dealer for the monies that we process for them as their billing agent. So we send cash to their account, and really all they need to do is typically a month-end revenue bucket journal entry into their accounting software. Often that's QuickBooks. So they need to book using a report they run in our system, the amounts that we have sent to them, and allocate those to those revenue buckets. And you can see here we've got 7 different revenue buckets for this company. You can have 2 or 3. You can have 15 or 20 revenue buckets. But very easy, 5 to 15 minutes journal entry, and you're done. The other thing that really sets us apart, I believe, is simply the support. We're well known in this industry. We can give you plenty of references. We believe in picking up the phone when somebody calls and having a human troubleshoot any issues that come up. So support, pretty well known for that. So all of our companies had done this in-house in the past. Why not do it in-house? It's always going to get done reliably, on time, like clockwork. You're going to end up with better software than you had before. You're going to end up guaranteed with better billing processes, and faster payments for some of the reasons we just talked about. Lower cost. We do things faster, better, and cheaper, and still maintain a high quality level in terms of these billing services. And finally, simpler, way simpler, short journal entry versus the 40 to 50 payment batches. Here is contact information for Chris and for myself. If you are interested in talking to us about either of our company services, feel free to reach out. We'd love to talk with you. And with that, I see we have several questions coming in for the Q&A. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jason. Jason?
Thanks, Scott. Great presentation, Chris. Appreciate it. You guys would do a great job. Before we get into the Q&A, we do have a number of questions that came in from the audience. Just wanted to send a gentle reminder to everybody that we are recording today's session. It'll be available on demand, so be on the lookout for an email on how to access the on-demand version. That'll be coming from us shortly. But with that being said, let's get into it. Have a lot of questions. Want to get to as many as we can. This first one is for Scott. Scott, this is from David. David wants to know, are late fees a good idea, and do they work?
Great question. Late fees can work. Honestly, most of our customers do not apply late fees. I'd say probably 2 out of 3 choose not to apply late fees. And there are different reasons for that. Obviously, customer annoyance. They can be used as a bargaining chip. You can give away the late fee in exchange for getting caught up with a subscriber. But by and large, this market is super competitive. A lot of big dogs in it, and I think if you're asking my advice, I would say on balance, late fees are more trouble than they're worth. So really, I'd recommend looking at some of the carrots that we talked about in this presentation rather than a stick like a late fee.
Okay, thanks for that, Scott. We got another one. This one's from Dana. Dana wants to know, Scott, one slide showed a paper invoice fee. What do people charge?
Usually $1 to $2. I'd say most companies that apply a paper invoice fee charge $2, which obviously easily covers cost of getting a paper invoice out the door. So in general, $2.
Okay, we got another one. This is coming from you. This is coming for Scott as well. This is from Dan. Scott, Dan wants to know, I'd like to start texting. How do I know if a phone number can be texted?
Good question. What we do is we run our dealers' phone numbers through an outside service bureau. That bureau then sends us the numbers back, tagged as either textable or not textable. So we get the data, we re-import the cleaned up phone number list, and as part of the import, we designate textable cell phone or not textable. I honestly don't remember the name of the company we use, but if you just shoot me an email, scott@alarmbills.com, I will, once I get it, I'll email you back with the company that we use.
Scott,
great. We've got another one. Oh, yeah, Chris, go ahead. Sorry about that.
No problem. I just want to add on to there. We're encouraging dealers in the customer sign-on process to gather information like text message, numbers, so that way they can communicate alarm conditions as well. So many of our dealers now are receiving alarm text messages, and they can respond back even if they're in the middle of a meeting at work and be able to cancel an alarm. And that would be a great opportunity to collect that information to later use, with the Cornerstone platform.
Thanks, Chris. We've got a couple more that we're going to take before we wrap things up. If anybody has a question, just for the sake of time, we definitely we're at the 45-minute mark now. I want to stay in that 50 to 55-minute mark. But we got a couple more that it looks like we're going to take. It's not too late to send them in if you have any questions. This next one is coming from Syed. Scott, we'll start with you. Chris, if you want to chime in, please do. It is from Syed, and Syed wants to know, Scott, how do you measure collection results, big picture?
Well, we generate quarterly reports for our dealers, so we want them to know exactly what we've done for them for the follow-up collection service. So we give them a few key statistics in that report. We break things out in quite a bit of detail, but big picture, total dollars billed for the quarter. So these are the monies that were billed. Of that, both the dollar amount and the percentage that slip into the past due category. So we obviously try to keep that percentage as low as we can using some of the methods we just talked about. And then lastly, and probably most important, the collection success that we've had on the past due invoices. So that would be the total dollars collected and the percentage collected compared to the dollars that went past due. So we try to obviously make that percentage as high as possible. So those are the main metrics that we use.
Okay, Chris, any comments on that, or will that suffice?
I think that he nailed it.
Perfect. We got another one. This one is coming from Al. Al wants to know, Scott, when you do collections, can you keep certain special in quotation, accounts out of the process? I want to understand how that works.
Yeah. Good question. So we've got, large companies with, let's say, builder relationships where they have key accounts that they really don't want to mess around with. They don't want to alienate, so they really want to keep out of the collections process. So one of the things we did many years ago is to set up a flag. I think it's a checkbox that says "Do not contact." So when we run our processes to get these monies paid, if that box is checked, "Do not contact," it completely excludes those accounts from the process. So yes, our customer, our dealer can opt out, their key relationship accounts. Very, very good question. Really important. You don't want to alienate somebody that's bringing you a lot of business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what we're going to take for now. Like I said, if you have any questions that we weren't able to get to, Scott or Chris can reach out to you directly offline. I know that Scott in the slide before left some information around how he can be contacted, how other folks at Cornerstone can be contacted. He presented Chris's information as well. So if you have any other questions about Cornerstone Billing Solutions, their partnership with Rapid Response Monitoring, and together how they can help, feel free to reach out to Scott or Chris with a call or email. They'll be happy to talk with you or communicate with you via email. A few more notes on the back end just to make sure that I'm not missing anything. We have recorded today's session, so it'll be available on demand within the next 24 hours. So if you want to reinforce what you learned today, then you'll have access to that sometime tomorrow. If you missed us, no worries. You'll be able to see what you missed. And if you have any colleagues, any peers that you think would get value out of this presentation, there's a lot of great value-centric stuff in here. Share it with them. The more the merrier. The more this message, this presentation can touch, the better. So be on the lookout for that email. And then probably in the next few weeks, be on the lookout for some email promotions, or perhaps visit the Cornerstone Billing Solutions website, alarmbills.com, to learn about their next webinar that they'll be running with us, what the topic is going to entail. It'll include Scott and I'm sure another one of his partners. Confident it'll be a good one and well worth your time. But with that being said, I wanted to thank everybody again for attending today's session. My name's Jason Steegent. Was glad I could participate today. Scott, Chris, great job. Looking forward to the next one.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.